I mean, I don't think I ever heard anybody talk about the emotional fallout of it. And I mean, money is one thing, but how you feel saying goodbye to something, you still have to say goodbye to something. You still have to, it's the end of a chapter.
The best guests on a podcast are those who have achieved immense amounts of success and they're not fussed about people's views on what they say or do. Welcome to the Exiteers podcast. Kathryn, hi, good morning. Absolutely delighted to have you join us on the Exiteers podcast today. Really keen to kind of dive into your story and hear a little bit more about your journey. Would you first of all please do a bit of an intro and then we can get into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today. I love being on a podcast. It's always good fun. So, I am Kathryn Strachan. I'm the former owner of a content marketing agency called CopyHouse. CopyHouse was a content marketing agency that specialized in complex industries. So, we set up in January 2020, 3 months before the pandemic, which obviously is a great time to start a business. When the pandemic hit, we made some really good moves, had a really strong business strategy in place, and ultimately thrived and survived during that period. So I grew the agency from just myself to a team of 32 with over 2 million turnover in the space of 5 years. I expanded us successfully into the US. So we had a 50-50 split between the US and the UK. I'm obviously from the US originally. So a big part of my background and what I do now is international strategies. And then I sold and exited it into a larger agency group in August 2024. Since then, I have been working as a fractional and consultant to build commercial growth engines that really help companies to thrive and survive and ultimately succeed. I also published a book called Scaling Success: How to Build Brands That Break Barriers. Scaling Success follows a lot of the journey of CopyHouse. You know, it follows a narrative of how I built a brand from the ground up and how I took that to market and how I really, poured on the gasoline. And it's a lot of the insights that I now use with my fractional and consulting clients today. So it's an international bestseller in the UK and the US for marketing and advertising, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship theory, and is available on Amazon. So go check it out. It's really cool. I'm really proud of it. That just came out in February of this year.
I absolutely love that, Kathryn. So much to dive into there in way of first of all, congratulations. You're talking to somebody who probably got halfway through the process of writing a book and thought, I'm going to publish this as blogs because it was taking too long. So I'm sure there's a book in there somewhere, but I'll need to develop a bit more staying power. How long did the book take to write?
So to write it only took a couple of months because I do a lot of public speaking and I've got a really strong personal brand. So I've got almost 19,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I do a lot of public speaking and have a strong personal brand. So because of that, I'm already telling a lot of these stories. So I had a clear outline, and then I sat down in the week between Christmas and New Year's when the agency was always closed and went really hard after it. So it only took a couple months to write. But the part that most people don't know about writing a book is that a lot goes into the actual production of it. So once it was written, it needed to be typeset, the cover, the title, like all of these fine little details needed to happen. So it probably took a year from when I started writing it to when it actually came out on market. And that is relatively quick. So I did a hybrid publishing model. If you do more traditional, you're probably looking at closer to 2 years.
Wow.
So it is quite the process.
I suspect there's a longer conversation you and I with regards to that. I'm really keen to go on that journey and kind of make it happen. Having I guess half of it done in theory, and it's something that one of my absolute heroes talks about a lot. Daniel Priestley is very vocal around the
key person of influence.
space. Yeah, and the influence bit, and it's definitely something I kind of fancy. What motivated you to write the book?
Well, I have 2 degrees in English literature. So I did my undergrad in English lit, and then I did my master's at UCL in modern literature. So I've always loved books since I was old enough to be able to read. I always had my nose in a book. So books and words and literature has always been a big part of who I am. I mean, I always, especially when I'm running the agency, always thought that I wouldn't have the time. It seemed like a big effort, and could I possibly get there? And I am not one of these people to like do well with excuses. So I got sick of my own bullshit and my own
The best
excuses,
way.
and yeah, told myself just to shut up and do it. So I did. And I mean, I think by the time I came to write a book as well, like it came out of me so quickly, so easily, that it was overdue. They say that, when you write a book that quick, you have had the book in you for too long. It's fallen out of you almost because you're brimming, you're overfilled with all the stories that you have to tell and all the insights and wisdom and expertise. And, looking back to, it was a really nice way to kind of capstone my agency journey and, almost use it as a dissertation for the MBA that I didn't get.
but but you could argue, Kathryn, you don't need it. If you
No, now I don't need an MBA.
make it
But at
real.
the beginning of CopyHouse, I applied to go do my MBA at Edinburgh University and got in. And the agency, so this was in 2020, and the agency was blowing up at the time. So I decided to defer. I decided to not go do my MBA, and I did the agency journey instead. And then when the deferment period came around, I asked my advisors, what do you think? Should I go do it? And they said, oh, you've probably learned more than you would on the course. But as somebody who loves academia, it always kind of was like, oh, I didn't do it when I could have, should have, maybe. But see the agency journey, and then the book that I wrote is off the back of it as my MBA now.
I absolutely love that. You've certainly inspired me to literally get pen to paper and take some time and do that. Do that, and I think it's probably the journey of that. Our stories are not dissimilar around the time frame. We were building agencies in different sectors, but that time frame is aggressive, and that's what I loved about your story when I heard it the first time. But also, COVID really divides opinion. For some businesses, it was a bloody nightmare. And for others, in my case, I was running a health agency. It was fantastic. But I'm really keen to dive into the story about the your agency, CopyHouse, understand a little more about the kind of motivations around that, and then tease into, if there was kind of three key pieces of learning over that journey. And then we'll move on and have a little chat about the exit and emotional impact of that. Sorry, I've thrown a load of questions at you there. I think my espresso's just kicked in, Kathryn.
It's okay. I've got my coffee here too.
Excellent. So, in way of kind of motivation for CopyHouse, what was the driver back in? You said 2000. You decided to launch the agency. You've been working in
2020.
that world.
2000, I would have only been
Sorry,
10 years old.
apologies. I meant
Would have only been
2020.
10, which would have been very early to start an agency journey.
Well, like they're getting younger and younger, Kathryn. Who knows?
It's possible. I had my first business at 3 selling Christmas tree ornaments in my dad's tree farm. But it's a
I
different
love that.
story.
So you were a born entrepreneur.
Yes, my dad's an entrepreneur. He's had businesses my whole entire life, and he used to feed us business books on long car trips and make us watch The Secret, which for anybody who's around in the 90s probably knows. He's given me Rich Dad Poor Dad like 5 different times. So, I mean, I have always been an entrepreneur and quite growth minded and quite growth oriented. I mean, being from the US, obviously, it's a big part of our culture as well. Entrepreneurship, business is something that it comes natural to most Americans as well. So it was always something that I had. I started CopyHouse in 2020. It kind of grew out of my freelance business. So it's been a very, very, very long time since I've been a freelance creative, but I was a freelance copywriter. Yeah, so I was working at Lloyd's Bank, which is a large financial institution, obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, and making quite a nice day rate. So I saved that day rate to start the agency. Working in big corporate like that, especially internally, people call it the golden handcuffs because you get paid a nice day rate, life is cushy, but like you're not actually actively growing or like really even learning stuff most of the time. Most people I knew who were there for the day rate. They were there to make money and not much else. No offense to anybody listening who's from Lloyd's, but I could only do that environment for so long. I'm so aggressively growth oriented and minded, and I really wanted to. I'm quite ambitious, very driven, and I really wanted to accelerate my career. So I could only do that environment for so long. So I saved the nest egg from there and used it to launch the agency. So it grew out of my freelance business. I was a copywriter, though I say I was an accidental copywriter because I was always meant to lead businesses. I only did copywriting because I saw it as a way to make money and to get where I wanted to go, which was to, be a senior business leader, to do that bigger strategy, to, have opportunities and expand into new markets. And, that's really what makes me excited. But I could see copywriting and content marketing as an avenue for doing that. And I think most agencies are started by creative practitioners. But the question of how your agency grows then comes down to whether or not you continue to identify as that. So, are you a copywriter through and through, and that's really what you want to be, or are you a business leader? Because as you grow the agency, you stop doing that. So I have not been a copywriter for 5 or 6 years. I actually bumped into somebody earlier this week who I hadn't talked to in like 7 years, and she's like, "Oh, Kathryn's a copywriter." I was like, "Whoa, I am not a copywriter. I've not been that for a very long time." Like, I could not imagine still identifying it as such after everything I've done and been through. But that's no shade to current copywriters. It's just, if you really want to grow a business and if you really want to grow an agency, you have to let go of that practitioner mentality and move into being a strategic business leader. Because when you're doing the business strategy, when you're leading the teams, when you're creating departments, when you're expanding into new markets, you don't also have time to actually do the doing. And I think that's a key decision that a lot of agency owners need to make, especially at the beginning of the journey, is what is it that you actually want to be? Because if you want to stay as a practitioner, you're not going to grow the agency aggressively. And that's okay too. Like, you can be a smaller outfit and still be involved in all the weeds. But if you really want to sell and exit, you have to get yourself out of the weeds. So an agency can't be sold if you are stuck in the middle of it.
Couldn't couldn't
Your
couldn't agree
ultimate
more.
goal is to move out, to make yourself redundant. That's the only way you're going to get out of it. So I think it's really important to decide early on, what is it that you want the agency to be? What do you want it to do? Do you want it to be a lifestyle agency where you just take like a nice pay home every day? Or, do you want it to scale and grow? And do you ultimately want to exit? Or do you want to, do that forever? I was very clear from the very beginning that I did not want to do it forever. I'm only 34 now, and that I was not actually a copywriter, but a business leader.
And so that it's unusual, Catherine, that level of clarity around the fact that you built it with exit in mind, but also you'd seen that journey. And for me, mine was exactly the same. I went into the second business knowing I wanted to be in and out in 5 years, and it was super aggressive. So how did that journey kind of unfold? So copywriter moving into building agency. You've talked a bit about the fact that you were very clear on that. Was the team around you equally clear that that was the plan?
Yeah. So, I never used freelance creatives. We always hired permanent team members because I wanted to build an agency that was strong on its people. I'm also very good at knowing where I am weak and pulling in people to supplement me. I really believe that an agency is not just one person. If you're a one person band, you're not an agency. Sorry, no offense, but you're not.
Yep.
In order to really be an agency, you have to have a strong team around you. So I put a lot of thought and attention into building that team from day one when we hired permanent full-time employees instead of using a big pool of freelancers. So I mean, we had like maybe two freelancers at the end, but like we never really used freelancers. We always hired permanent team members because we could really invest in them, we could grow them, we could develop them, we could nurture them, and we could help them, and they in turn would help us to grow the company. So that was also something that we did very different from the get-go. And I mean, as that team grew, one of the things I also had to learn how to do was to hire people who were good at things that I thought that I was good at. So
Yep.
I mean, I hired a create before in the beginning. I used to review all the content that went out the door. So I used to review all the blogs, used to review all of it. And it became obviously bottleneck. The team didn't like it very much because I was being a little bit of a copy dictator. I thought that I knew best and that nobody knew as well as I did. And then I hired a creative director who was 20 years older than me, very smart, turned on, very mature guy. But he basically pushed me out the door and told me, "This is my job. You go away now."
Yep.
It was a little bit of a struggle at first because I really had to let go of that identity. I had to let go of being a copywriter, of even being a creative. I had to let go of that and move into more of leading the senior leadership team and learn how to be a better leader myself. But he taught me massively to let go of that, and that was probably like the final, like we were building to that, but that was probably like the straw that ultimately pushed me out of being the creative and being involved in the creative department to more of leading the business strategy and working with a senior leader. So I set up a senior leadership team. We had a head of people who oversaw people and company culture and recruitment. We had a creative director who obviously oversaw the creative team. We had a head of operations who had been my fourth employee. I had hired him as a project manager, but he was with us for the whole entire journey. He's still there today, helped us to build all the creative systems and operations and everything within the company that allowed us to run successfully. And we had a CFO who helped us with all the finance. So I built the senior leadership team and then worked with each of the senior leaders to build their individual company strategies. And I pulled these strategies together to create the larger business strategy to really help us lead where we were going. But yeah, I mean, it was a really great journey, but would not have been possible without the strong team that we built.
I totally agree with that. And one of the early pieces of advice I had building the last business was every time I messed around in other people's roles, and plenty of us have done lots of the jobs. My agency was different. We were building digital services for government and healthcare. But I had a head of people who is also a mate who said, "Rach, every time you mess around, you're not doing the CEO role. So do us a favour and get back in your in your camp," which was great advice, because when we've done those roles, I think it's hard, that learning curve as you go through it, to step away. These days, I can't wait to bloody delegate and play solely in that space. But we're almost too early right now for that. But it's that balancing act, isn't it, in getting it right. So you'd grown the business over a 4-year period to 32 permanent staff, and then couple of interims. And what about the exit journey? So how did that? Did you engage a broker? Did people knock on the door? What was that process like?
Well, since I knew from the very beginning that I always wanted to exit it, I had been having conversations and nurturing and connecting with other agency owners and agency groups that were bigger than us, obviously, but who could be potential buyers. So, I mean, from the very beginning, I was having early conversations, just building relationships, seeing, who might be on market, who might be of interest. We also worked with a couple of Neds who worked in the M&A space that advised us throughout the journey. So we were setting things up in the right way, which was really important. And then when it did come time, it was somebody from that network who we had been having conversations with, who the M&A Neds that we had on board were also familiar with, that the stars just sort of aligned and the opportunity came up. I had some things happening personally as well. I mean, leading an agency is really difficult. It almost broke my marriage. It took 18 months of marriage therapy to get my relationship with my husband back on board. And if I had pushed it any longer, we would have been divorced. So I knew that I needed to get out then as well. I had lost 2 years with my daughter because I was living in London during the later stages of the agency and they were living in Scotland. So I lost 2 years of her life that I'll never get back as well. And I needed to stop all of that. I was very burnt out by the time I came to the end of the agency journey. I was probably a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. And yeah, I almost lost my marriage and the last 2 years of my daughter's life. So I knew that I needed to get out as well for my own and for my family. So it was an offer that came at the right time that I took full advantage of.
And Catherine, if you don't mind me teasing into that, I mean it's mental running these companies because there's a lot of pressure that's put on us. We have a tendency to put even more pressure on us. So young kids, marriage. It sounds like that kind of went all the way to the wire. So I guess my question there is do you regret building the agency for the impact it had personally?
No, 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 not at all. I mean, my career absolutely like took off, flourished. I went from being a copywriter to being very senior, well respected within the industry, having so many opportunities that I would not have had otherwise. So, I mean, it was probably one of the best like professional moves I could have done. I mean, I think I don't believe in things being broken. I believe in them being stronger. So, I mean, my relationship with my husband is a lot stronger now than it ever was before. And we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't gone through that. I think all marriages go through hard things as well. So, I
Agreed.
mean, and it wasn't just because of the agency. It would be unfair to say it was just that, but it was definitely like one of the bigger factors. And I mean, I'm also kind of one of these people that like never really look back with regrets. I kind of more look back with like where I am right now. I wouldn't be if I hadn't done or gone through that. So, no, I don't regret it at all. Would I do it again? Absolutely not. So many people ask me that since leaving. They're like, and I think they just completely don't understand because they're like, oh, like you're looking for a full-time job? Like, wouldn't you just do your own thing again? I'm like, are you fucking crazy? Are you fucking crazy? Like, what like, why the hell would I do that again right now? It hasn't even been a year since I've been out. Like, I think if I came home and I told my husband, seriously, I'm going to do another agency today, he'd be like, so we're just done then.
Get out.
Like that would just what? Like maybe in like 5 years, maybe in like a few years, after some time has passed, like yeah, okay, maybe, but like it blows my mind that people honestly ask me and seriously ask me like, oh, are you going to do your own thing again? I'm like, are you are
But
you kidding?
I think that's probably, I'm generalizing here. I think that's probably those that haven't done it themselves, and or if you were to look
It
at,
has to be. If you've actually done this, there's no way. I mean, it's crazy talk to think that like you would come out, recover, be in a really good place mentally, and then just go do it again. Like, are you nuts? No way.
it
No.
is. I think it's fascinating, isn't it? When I after I sold the agency, which was 5 years ago for me. Same as you, but I had no desire at all to go back into agency land. I mean, I am actually stepping in to take equity in an agency and going to play an active role in transforming that business. But I needed a 5 year gap for exactly the reason. One, I think jumping straight back into same industry would have just blown my mind. It would have been too close too soon. But I had to prove I could do something different in a totally new industry. And I didn't want that pressure of, when I sold different, we had 65 permanent heads. I didn't want that pressure again around me. That sort of, it terrified me. So, yeah, you're preaching to the converted. You need a long window of time before considering. And, people's paths are not uh, the same again. And so, there will be a different journey, as it sounds as though there is and there has. I just want to tease in a little more to the kind of emotional impact around that exit. You've talked a bit about your marriage and about your daughter and kind of missing, time, key time. Is there advice that you would give to people who are running an agency, who are listening to this thinking, fuck, that resonates? And, kind of, is there an easier, softer way to do this?
Slower, probably. I mean, I am sometimes too ambitious for my own good. And I think I probably needed to learn that lesson the hard way. But I mean, there's more to life than work, and you don't have to do everything immediately either. So, I mean, if I had spaced that 5 year journey out over 10 years, though, if I personally had the stamina for that sort of time journey, probably not, because I get quite bored quite easy. So, I mean, makes perfect sense why I did it the way that I did it. But if I can give advice to somebody else from my ivory tower, it would be to space it out so that
Yeah.
you're not trying to do it all at once, because it's very time consuming to do it that way. I would probably also say not to lose yourself in it. Really, really, really try not to lose yourself in it. I mean, I developed coping techniques towards the end, like having hobbies outside of work, but there was a period where, I wasn't paying myself, or I wasn't going to the gym, I wasn't making time for myself. And then, I did learn the hard way in that journey as well that the agency was stronger if I did make time for myself, if I did pay myself, and that my family had to come first. So, our pay couldn't be affected by whatever was going on in the agency. They needed the peace of mind within that. And they deserve it. Your family shouldn't pay the price for your business thriving, or going through a more difficult time. So I would say don't lose yourself. I mean, have at least one hobby where, like, you can't be on your phone. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I do pottery. You're on a wheel for 3 hours. You can't be on your phone. Do spinning an hour. You cannot be looking at your phone. Rock climbing. If you look at your phone, you're going to fall off the wall. Like, find one of these, something that takes you completely off your phone so that you can at least rest and recharge. Because, I mean, professional athletes know this, but we don't talk about it enough professionally. Professional athletes know that if they train 7 days a week full on, they're going to get hurt.
Yep.
We don't treat our brain the same way, and we really should. So you cannot train full time 7 days a week and not get hurt, whether that is a physical muscle or your actual brain. You need that time, and that time is really important. So having a rest day where you're not working, where you're not thinking, where you're not strategizing, which was really difficult for me to do, but I've now learned the hard way how important that rest is, and how much more energized, have fresh ideas, ready to keep going. And agency world is crazy. Like, you go from like a high to a low in the same day. It's crazy. You need and you deserve that time off. And, it means not working on the weekends. You probably shouldn't work on the weekends. It means, taking time in the evening to go do a hobby that you enjoy. But, you shouldn't put everything 110% into the agency, or you will pay the price. And, I definitely pushed it until I could not push it anymore. So in some ways, the exit was also like by force. It was needed. Like, I couldn't have continued. Where, if I spaced that out, if I was nicer to myself, if I took it over a longer journey, I could have potentially brought the agency even bigger and, sold at a higher valuation. But, we live and we learn.
Well, I think we do, and I think the message that I've heard there, and I often, when I'm talking to other founders, I feel a bit like some of these messages are very directed to me personally, which of course I would, but I suffer with a very addictive personality. I know that. I'm 11 and a half years sober, and so you stop one thing, and here's the news: it's rocking up in another area for you, and I definitely have suffered with kind of workaholic tendencies over the years, less so these days. But as you were chatting, I was nodding because I do have hobbies, because I won't let myself work 7 days a week. But I too kind of learned that the hard way. And there's so many similarities with our stories around the time frame, that pushing, that kind of desire to prove something so fucking fast it's unbelievable, almost at any cost, and then just about reining it in. That's why I was like, I'm just nodding like the whole time, thinking, oh my God, yeah, so many similarities.
Yeah. I have to actively tell myself no now. I mean, I work as a fractional and as a consultant, and I have no desire to grow that. But my brain is still like, oh, I could hire like a personal assistant, and I could hire a marketing manager, and I could do this and I could do that. And I literally have to sit here and be like, no, stop it. We're not doing that right now. We're going to take a time out. We're not going there, not going there. Like, have to physically restrain myself from doing it, even though I know logically it's not like growing a consultancy is not what I'm after right now. I think that'd be nuts. But I have to like really, really tell myself no, and train myself to not be looking for, oh, how you can make it bigger, how you can make it go faster, how you can like really accelerate it. I mean, thankfully, with consulting clients, like I get to do that for them, which helps because
Yeah.
it's like a layer between me and the actual growth, so I'm not as addicted to it as I was. And I really enjoy helping others to do that now, and it gives me some boundaries because it's not my business. I care that they do well, but it's not my business at the end of the day, so I'm not working 200 hours a week. I'm only working 30 or 40, but I need that sort of one step away to not fall into it again.
I think that's such a key message, Catherine, because we all get, we fall in love with these bloody businesses, for good and for bad, and I think that awareness, and that was what really resonated when we chatted prior to recording today, was your kind of awareness, having been on that journey, and it comes to us, I think, at varying times and for varying reasons. I'm a huge fan of Sahil Bloom, the author, and his book for me is a bit of a bloody bible at the minute, because it brings some balance around, how do you measure, your life, not from a financial, but from a social, from a where do you get your energy, every component. And so for me, learning some of those lessons is key, and I too, get to help others through the work that we're doing at the Grafter. Um, and it's funny, we had one of the companies on Friday who had gone through the Grow Raise Exit program who has exited. And I'm over the moon for them. And I found myself looking at the photos on Instagram of them celebrating the exit. And it wasn't I want to do that. At the moment, I don't have any desire to do that. But it was fuck, I'm so proud that they've gone on that journey. And after, 10, 11 years, they have achieved that result. But I'm very similar to you, I think, in way of that. It's for me, it's a bit of a precipice, and I can launch in very easily. So I have to spend a lot of time convincing myself it's not what I'm doing at the minute. So I'm pleased to hear I'm in. Yeah, we're kindred spirits in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. It's difficult sometimes, but I remind myself about some of the other things in life that are important, like walking my daughter to school. I didn't do any school runs for like 2 years. None. Didn't do a single one. And now, I'm at her sports days and I'm walking her to school and picking her up from school and, talking to her. And we did a 3-week trip to Indonesia in April, and I didn't work the whole
Oh,
entire
I love
time we
that.
were there. It was just me and her over half term. Like, that was so special and not something that I would have ever been able to do during the agency. So yeah, remind myself what's more important in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that is such a profound message, but also really solid advice for anybody. I an entrepreneur a few weeks back, and he said, I'm sort of doubling down on everything. And then when the kids are 10, I'm going to be able to spend time with them. And I said, hold on a second, mate. None of us know what's going to happen from one day to the next. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, I think that's probably the worst thing I've heard for a long period of time. So for God's sakes, have a rethink about that if that's your strategy.
By the time they're 10, they don't really wanna hang out with you. I mean, they're so busy with their friends and, like, all their hobbies and stuff that, like, they don't really wanna spend time with you by the time that they're 10. And, I mean, time is marked on children, so if you lose that time, you are never gonna get it back. I mean, it's not like a friend who, you haven't seen in a few years and you pick up exactly where you left off and you both kinda look the same, maybe a little bit heavier, but you both basically look the same. Not much has changed and you can pick up that relationship. I mean, if you drop that ball, that is a glass ball. You're not getting it back. It's done. So I mean, the only thing you can really do from that point is try your best to be there again. But I mean, that's quite a hard lesson to learn, I think.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And in way of any kind of advice that you would offer to founders who are planning to exit, is there a kind of pearl of wisdom? We talked a bit about perspective, about prioritizing, life as much as work, but is there any pearls of wisdom that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate key at the end of the day is to get yourself out of the agency. So you need to not only get really good at delegating, but building a really strong team around you. So my head of operations, who was my fourth hire, did that whole journey with me and was, my left hand throughout it. And he helped me to navigate that journey, but also he took it over. So I didn't have to stay for as long as I would have otherwise. So he was able to step into that like managing director, senior leader. Well, he was already a senior leader, but step into the place that I had vacated so the agency could continue without me. I mean, an agency is basically only an idea, and you have to create enough movement around it for it to continue without you. And I think that probably like the exit itself, and maybe this is a good segue onto it, but exits are only ever really talked about as this big glorious thing, like, to get paid out of your agency is amazing, like, but they don't actually talk about the emotional fallout that comes
Yep.
after it. And I mean, you mentioned earlier that, we fall in love with the businesses that we create, and we do. We identify with them and we're so codependent with them. And then all of a sudden you don't have it, and you have to go through the whole grief process. So I mean, there was a lot of, even though like it was a really good thing for me and it was a good thing for the clients and it was a good thing for the team, and like logically I knew that it was the right thing to do and the right move. It was emotionally a lot rougher than I expected it to be, that I knew anything about. I don't think I'd heard anybody talk about how emotionally hard it is, but to build something and leave it is terrible. I mean, it's like going through a breakup, knowing that the breakup needs to happen for the right reasons, and you know that you're better off not together, but you're still sad. Like, you still have to say goodbye to something. So, I mean, I went through the whole grief process, the denial, the bursting into random tears every hour of the day, like so many tears. And then, through that whole cycle, and you am now relatively accepting and in a good place and happy, and my life is better, my family's life's better. Like, I don't talk to them too much, so I don't know how things are there, but I hope that things are better there as well.
But I
But
think that's probably
it
quite
is like
healthy.
going through the whole journey, and that head of operations, who was my best friend, who I did speak to every single day, like, I had to cut ties with him because I found that we were still talking about the agency, and in order for me to recover from that, I needed to not be talking about the agency. I needed to not be thinking about the agency every second of every day. So, like, our relationship ended, which was really sad as well. And I still really miss him sometimes. I mean, I'm so loyal that when I love something, it's really hard for me to not love it anymore, whether that's a person or a business. And, I still think about the agency a lot. But I am like in a better place, obviously. Like, the payout was nice as well, obviously, but emotionally, for me at least, emotions and finances aren't really connected. What I feel emotionally and what I think logically, or experience and finances fall into that logical camp, are not always in harmony.
I totally agree with that, and it threw me when I sold the last business. For the same reasons you'd spoken about. My identity was heavily linked. I didn't know how I was going to introduce myself other than Rachel, the CEO, are different. The reality is, no one cares. It was me who cared, though, and the team. It was a very dysfunctional family, that business, and so we knew way more about each other than perhaps we should have done. But yeah, I absolutely loved the team, and that was the bit that I found the hardest. But I too had to I had to start reading about them. I had to unfollow the stuff on socials just because it was too hard, and also seeing some of the decisions unraveled for good or for bad. Just in the end, I thought it's consuming me too much, so I need a break. But it is incredibly powerful hearing your journey in that respect. One of the things that we're doing now with a grafter is we're helping founders to grow their business, but also maximize the value of their business prior to an exit. And I heard us described last week as a corporate finance house that is human centered and actually works with the founder to plan for some of these things. And I think that's probably our real USP. It's not surprisingly how we craft an information memorandum, but it's actually making sure that if entrepreneurs are going on this journey, they are doing it for the right reasons. And I think plenty of us think a big number is going to answer all the problems and questions. And it, for me, it didn't. It's created freedom. There's no denying that. I'd be lying if I said it hadn't created financial freedom. But it opened up a can of worms that, I couldn't pick up the phone and have. I've got mates from every walk of life. I couldn't pick up the phone and have some of those conversations because I've got mates that would be on a building site who would be going, "What the fuck? You've sold your business for 8 figures. You're on the phone wanging on about it." That would have been the shortest call in history. So I think being able to create an environment where you can have those conversations is key. But I'm not sure I've heard anyone articulate it quite as well as you did there, in way of just how intense that process was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think I ever heard anybody talk about the emotional fallout of it. And I mean, money is one thing, but how you feel saying goodbye to something, you still have to say goodbye to something. You still have to, it's the end of a chapter. And I mean, ends of chapters, and especially when you love something and your identity is so wrapped up in it, is really difficult. I mean, I spent the year before I was fully out of the agency, like working really hard to separate my identity from it.
Yep.
But you still are attached to it. There's no like way to run a business and not be attached to it. So, I mean, there are things you can do in the lead up to it, and reinvesting in yourself and reinvesting in like your personal relationships and like edging out of it rather than like a very hard stop is a good thing to be thinking about. But you do still have to go through that process. And I think one of my best friends during the pandemic said, sometimes the only way through is through. And I think that that's really true. Sometimes you just have to go through stuff. You have to sit in it. You have to feel it. And, you'll get to a point where it doesn't make you cry.
Yeah. I totally agree with that, and I think it's some of us have to feel it more. I think to get that kind of message and to have it sink in. For me, I tend not to learn a lesson particularly rapidly. I really need to be almost brought to my knees for that penny to drop. And if I had had any comprehension of how hard emotionally I would find it to sell the business, I'm not sure I would have gone ahead. If I look at it purely objectively, financially, financially was a good deal, but fuck, it was tough. And
maybe that's why people don't talk about it. It's like childbirth. Like you don't really talk about it. You just like try to forget that it even exists so that
Yep.
you have the courage and the bravery to still go through it. But yeah, I mean, though looking back now, like I am in such a healthier place. So like I sleep through the night. I didn't sleep through the night for 2 years. I used to wake up every night between like 2 to 4 without fail. I had a left eye twitch that did not go away for like 7 months. I lost a lot of weight. I lost about like 20 pounds in the space of
Wow.
like 6 months. My marriage, yeah, it was, we had actually asked each other for a divorce like around the time that I decided to sell the agency. So we were like literally there. We were getting divorced and we've been together, well, almost 13 years now. And, we did manage to recover and save it. And my relationship with my daughter was pretty much non existent. So, I mean, now looking at where I am, like I've gained a bit of weight. I sleep through the night almost every single night. I don't have an eye twitch. My relationship with my husband's really strong. My daughter and I are best friends. Like, if I look now at where I am in my life, like all of that grief that I had to go through to part the agency was so worth it. Like, I am so healthy. I go to the gym like every other week. I'm stronger, even though like I've lost weight. Like, I'm really fit and can do, an hour spin class, no problem. And, mentally, I'm in a really good place. I'm not stressed out. I'm not anxious. I used to have this ball of anxiety that lived on my chest. I named him Herbie because he never went away. Like, I never feel that anymore. So, I mean, every bad situation, I think at least, or negative situation, which, even though the finances were good, like negative emotionally, it was quite negative, ultimately leads to a positive place, or at least for me, it does. So, I am, having said all that, and all the heartbreak that I went through saying goodbye to it, I am now in a really happy and healthy place that I'm really proud about.
Kathryn, I'm kind of blown away with your openness. You know how authentic, how honest and raw you've been sharing your journey today, and just so much gratitude for you coming on and talking to me. Yeah, just a massive thank you from me for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. And if anybody listening wants to talk, like just drop me a LinkedIn message. These things are hard to go through, and, we've all been there as well. So if you want to talk to me further about anything I've said today or any of the things that I've described, if you're going through it, just reach out, drop me a LinkedIn message. I get back to pretty much everybody.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too.